Last week, I posted a video about my inspiration to create a game prototype from a disturbing computer-generated image that is commonly referred to as AI slop. The video got a lot of views and comments, relatively speaking, and it seems as though people enjoyed the concept, as did I. So I thought I'd take it further and see what happens. I've done more research on AI slop since my last video and looked at a ton of examples, and I've come to suspect that the original image isn't of a woman picking up babies, but some sort of weird AI-created metaphor of motherhood where women are overburdened with babies and with the next pregnancy looming behind them. There are several similarly themed AI slop that seem to back up this concept. I still have no idea what kind of prompt generates these. But back to the game I started, where you skate around and pick up babies. I actually really liked the idea of throwing the babies you pick up, which I mentioned in my video last week, so I set about adding that feature. It worked out pretty well, but when I added the logic so that you trip over fallen babies, they become a bit of a nuisance. I'll have to fine-tune that code. I also considered other game elements such as creepy giant hands with the wrong number of fingers that move in disturbing ways like you see in a lot of AI-generated videos. It's rather unsettling. I created this by hiding all the other parts of a male model in DAZ 3D and exporting just the hand. I then double up the hands, making the second one slightly different in size and orientation to make each hand thing look unique. I have some rough code to add them to the game, but I need to balance it better. My current iteration has the giant hands knocking down babies and smacking anything that is a ragdoll, including you when you fall down, sending you flying. I still think purposefully falling down should be a game mechanic, but I don't know why yet. There will be pickups in the form of rare AI-generated concepts of Scarlett Johansson in coin form, but what those pickups will do yet, I'm not sure. I'm also planning to give very rare babies a hat. If you happen to capture that baby instead of knocking it down, you get whatever power the hat represents. I don't know what type of power-ups the game has, but I know one option will be that you just end up wearing the hat without any other perks. I know that I want to make it roguelike in that each time you play a new game, the hats have different effects, so it's different every time you play. I imagine I'll do the same with the ScarJo coins. Aside from this, I've been contemplating other game modes that change the gameplay altogether, but are still inspired by various AI slop I've seen. Now that I'm done with all the boring gameplay stuff, I decided to spend a few hours working on the most important part of the game, the intro. I've always been impressed by the effort put into introductions for video games like Tenchu, Rise of Nations, and Freelancer, even though they technically had nothing to do with the actual gameplay. They harken back to an era of epic game introductions one would watch once, then subsequently skip without hesitation, and I wanted to capture that spirit. Look at those intros. People put serious work into those. In the past, whenever I've worked on video games for fun, I've always tried to make them over the top. For example, when I took an online Unity course in 2015, there was a section on making an Arcanon clone. This was the standard platform with a ball that breaks up blocks type of game, but I gave it a massive backstory with interstitial cutscenes resembling Metal Gear Solid cutscenes, and it was just ridiculous when contrasted with the very basic gameplay. Here's an example.
Good work, Ace. You held them off at Jupiter, but now those aliens have reached Mars.
Oh no, not Mars!
Plus, they've now started using impervium on some of their bricks.
Impervium? What's that?
It's an indestructible substance. Not even your magic basketballs can break it.
If it's indestructible, then why don't they make everything out of it?
I don't know. Just find a way to work around it and destroy those bricks.
Aye aye, Captain.
So let's start making an intro to my AI slop game, which I've decided to name Beautiful Cabin Crew because that's the most meaningless of the common phrases you see associated with AI slop. The first thing the intro needs is music. Once you have the music, you have the timing and the pacing for whatever the intro is going to be. Given that this is a game based on AI-generated nonsense concepts, it made sense to have the music AI-generated. Unfortunately, AI music generation has improved dramatically just over the last few years. Listen to this early example of AI-generated music by OpenAI on SoundCloud from 2021.
It's who and holy baby went down to earth with human flesh. Oh, like a sacrifice. With human flesh for sacrifice. My control man first. She's the other's got the pill. Make it blow the sky, they break in love.
Now listen to something that was generated a day ago on musics.app.
Twilight alone, where the fireflies dance, a whisper of dreams in an evening's romance. With shadows that linger, my heart starts to race, for I know she's waiting in this sacred place.
Huge difference, right? Thus, any music I get generated today is not going to be overly sloppy, but I thought it'd be cool to add lyrics. I tried to get an online AI image describer to generate a textual description of the original AI slop image with emphasis on making the result lyrics into a song, but it did a non-sloppy decent job, even though the lyrics were kinda lame, so scratch that idea. I decided that better lyrics would be the actual comments on the Reddit post where I first encountered this image. I grabbed them up, typos and all, and rearranged them so that some of the lines would rhyme, with my comment about how I almost want to make this a video game at the end. I requested that the musics.app site generate swelling orchestral music intended to be an introduction of a video game using a full choir, and it did a decent job, though it didn't use a choir, just a single male voice. There were about 20 seconds of instrumental I had to cut out because it was just painfully long, but it was repetitive so I could make a clean cut. In short, AI has a ways to go yet, but I can't imagine it'll be more than a couple years before this stuff starts sounding studio quality. By the way, this isn't an endorsement for musics.app, they were just the first site I found that let me provide lyrics and gave me one free song generation before asking for money. I'm from Winnipeg, which means I'm incredibly cheap. And cold. All the time. With the music ready, I now had something to time my intro against. The first thing you see in an intro is the logo of the company that made it. I use my own personal company logo, Digify Incorporated, and slap a games underneath it for when I make games. But this is a game about AI slop, so it's only fair that I show a sloppy version of my logo. I run a local instance of Invoke AI, which can generate images from textual prompts and source images. So I ran my logo through it, and what it came up with, well, wasn't anything legible, but it's slop, so mission accomplished? When Invoke AI generates images, you can watch the process, which looks like a lot of low-resolution, noisy images being composited. I figured it'd be neat to transition my logo between it and a random slop version using a similar pixelated effect. I spent some time trying to get a dynamic mosaic effect shader and transition animation working, but in the end I wasn't 100% happy with the results and opted instead for a blinking transition, which might be a little jarring, but I think it's clearer that this is a slop version. Maybe it's something I'll improve in the future. In the past, I would have written code to do this translation and blending and timing, but this time I experimented with creating Unity animations for the transforms of my logo and other properties, and it worked so much better because the animator window is actually quite powerful and easy to use, for the most part. Being able to filter the properties you're currently viewing would be very useful, but I understand why they don't allow that. Having only used animation controllers for rigged models in the past, I initially used an animation controller for my logo, but through later experimentation discovered that you can just add a single animation component to your game object and it will run when the object is active. There's no need for a controller if you only have one animation. So now that I have the ever-important logo, what should come next? My heavy use of AI in this project feels like uncreative stealing. But the lyrics are from presumably real human Reddit users, so I decided that each line of the song should be attributed to the user who contributed it, making each look like video game dialogue because, after all, this is a video game. I like having avatars for each Reddit user credited for singing their part of the lyrics. Now, each of these users has a Reddit avatar, but if I took them directly from Reddit, that would feel like stealing. So like everyone selling AI systems, I pretend that letting the AI steal content for training and using the results absolves me from all blame, and I requested Invoke AI to generate Reddit avatars for each user by name in batches of 4. Weirdly, regardless of the username, if a human figure was generated, it was always a brunette and frequently an Asian-looking female. For Reddit user Horizon_1234BT3, one of the images it generated was a topless Asian female. No idea where the AI got that from. I want these dialogue boxes to appear and disappear in time with the song. I added a Text Mesh Pro object to the canvas to display the current time index of the audio source playing the intro song so I can see roughly when things happen. I then created a component I called Intro Lyric that has as its data fields the audio source, a show time, and a hide time. Initially, my thought was to set the game object's active flag based on whether or not the song's time position is between our show and hide times, but setting the active flag to false means that it won't run its update loop again to determine if it should be reactivated, because it's deactivated. Oops. Since all these dialog boxes are sprites, I changed the logic to enable or disable the sprite renderer component if the current playtime of the audio is between the show and hide time. It worked beautifully. Next was the actual content of the intro. I decided I wanted to have the original game-inspiring image appear from the darkness, lit by a single spotlight as if it were art in a gallery. With it prominently displayed, I would show the lyrics of the song underneath using the intro lyric component. To keep it interesting, I decided to add some more AI content that fit the lyrics, either collected from the Facebook AI Slop subreddit or by generating images myself. Some of these have animations themselves to move across the screen or do other things. Rather than trying to time the animation to the start of the song, I added a custom list to my intro screen component to allow me to specify game objects in the level and their show and hide times relative to the song. This script does set the active flag of the game object in question, but because it's an external script to those objects, it can do that. The other bonus is that animation components on a game object only start playing when their game object is active, so I only had to make the animation relative to when the object would be woken up, and then I could fine-tune the show and hide times on my intro screen component without having to change anything else. And finally, it would take forever to even create 1 minute of animation if I had to keep playing from the beginning to watch for the appropriate time code to put into my components for showing and hiding the elements of the introduction. To make life easier for me, I added a start time offset property to my intro screen component, and when the start method of the component is executed, I set the theme song's current playhead position and the time offset of every animator in the scene to my offset. That allows me to start the intro at any point in time and skip having to watch large segments of completed intro. Something I always liked from TV intros from shows like The Outer Limits and Fringe was a tunnel effect where text and/or images fly away from the camera towards the horizon, and I decided I wanted to do the same right before the game title is shown. But for my game, I would have the spotlit picture fly off into the horizon, followed closely by more examples of AI slop. I created a prefab that moves towards a distant point, initially at a constant velocity until it passes 0 in the z-axis, and then speeds up to disappear in the distance. I also wrote some code to randomly assign an AI slop texture to the prefab and position it randomly inside a sphere behind the camera. The AI on musics.app doesn't quite know how to end songs, so this epic swelling music ends on an orchestral hit, but then kind of makes a strange noise and ends for real on a second orchestral hit. Rather than trim it out, I decided that I would use the first hit to display the title of the game, generated by a logo generation website that could almost handle text, and the second hit to do some shameless self-promotion with some more AI slop. And because the intro has random elements, it's always a little different each time you watch. One last thing. Every intro needs a skip button, and my goal is to use AI slop for as much of the user interface as possible, even though it might be rather incoherent or inconsistent. So I asked Invoke AI to generate the word skip for me, and I took the most recognizable of the slop and made it a button that starts fading in and out after the Digify logo. With everything in place, I now present to you the world premiere for the intro to my AI slop-inspired game, Beautiful Cabin Crew. Remember that everything you're about to see is running in Unity and not a manually created video.
I don't even know what to say. Why don't pictures like this ever trend? Is the tagging literally all these pricks use? This is either Beautiful Cabin Crew, Scarlett Johansson, or it's unknown facts about hashtag email news. I wonder why. Look deeper on a package to a 4 and 5 deal movie, maybe, baby run of 2020. I'll even feel running from my nightmares. I always want to make this concept into a video game. Into a video game. Into a video game.
So what do I think about it? Honestly, I can't help but watch it and smile because it's so ridiculous and over the top. I slightly regret not correcting typos in the Reddit comments because I think it would have made the intro song better, but I'm trying to not let perfect be the enemy of absolute sloppily terrible. I hope to continue making enhancements to this prototype and get something playable up on my itch.io page. I'd also like to know what you all think about it. Let me know in the comments below. I'm the sort of person who feels that we're not given anywhere near enough time on this planet. And despite having a day job and a family and many other responsibilities, I admittedly take on too much because I want to try and do everything, whether it's writing, musical composition, game development, animation, photography, and YouTube content creation. Suffice it to say, I don't sleep much. So I must apologize for being rather infrequent with my videos because of everything going on. I do want you to know that I appreciate everyone who takes the time to like my videos, subscribe to my random channel of nonsense here, and comment. I do read all the comments. I make no money off YouTube, and I'm not sure I ever will, but I'm happy that I'm able to add this tiny little piece to the tapestry of human endeavors. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Until next time, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you in the future.